The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure built by hundreds of species over thousands of years. Inside, Ambassador Kelleth stood before the assembled representatives, his 4 arms trembling with fear and urgency. He had traveled for months to bring this warning, and now he needed them to listen. "Honorable members of the Council," Kelleth began, his voice carrying through the translation devices that allowed 300 species to understand each other. "I bring grave news from the outer spiral arm. A new species has achieved faster than light travel. This alone would not be remarkable, but the world they come from is classified as a Class 12 death world." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most species present had evolved on gentle worlds with mild climates and few predators. The idea of intelligent life arising from a truly hostile planet was disturbing to contemplate. Council Director Voss leaned forward from his elevated platform. He was a Thalmarian, a species known for their wisdom and peaceful nature. His kind had helped found the Council 12,000 years ago. "Surely you exaggerate, Ambassador. No sapient species could evolve under Class 12 conditions. The gravity alone would prevent the development of complex thought." Kelleth activated his display, and holographic images filled the center of the chamber. The first image showed a blue and green planet, beautiful from space, but hiding terrible secrets beneath its clouds. "This is Earth," Kelleth said. "Gravity is 1.3 times the galactic standard. The atmosphere contains 21% free oxygen, which is corrosive to most known biological systems. The surface temperature varies wildly between regions and seasons. Natural disasters occur with frightening regularity. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, massive storms that could flatten our cities." More images appeared. Creatures with sharp teeth and claws, tiny organisms that could kill in hours, plants that secreted poison. The ocean alone contained thousands of species designed to hunt and kill. "At every level of the ecosystem," Kelleth continued, "these beings faced death, and yet they survived. They thrived. They learned to hunt the hunters. They built civilizations despite wars and plagues that should have ended them." A representative from the Delphian Collective, an aquatic species known for their gentle nature, spoke up. "But surely any species that achieves space travel has moved beyond primitive violence. They must have developed wisdom and compassion." Kelleth's expression darkened. He brought up new images, and the chamber fell silent. These showed human conflicts, massive explosions that carved craters in the earth, weapons that could level entire cities, evidence of wars fought with such intensity that they had nearly destroyed the species multiple times. "They call themselves humans," Kelleth said quietly, "and they never stopped fighting. Not when they discovered atomic energy, not when they colonized their moon, not when they reached other planets in their system. They fought each other for resources, for beliefs, for territory, and through it all, they grew stronger." He showed recordings of human soldiers moving through hostile terrain. He showed them surviving in conditions that would kill most galactic species within minutes. Extreme heat, extreme cold, high radiation zones, underwater environments, the vacuum of space itself with only thin protective suits. "They are persistent beyond reason," Kelleth said. "When faced with obstacles, they do not retreat. They adapt. They overcome. They have a saying, 'What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.' This is not metaphor for them. This is their evolutionary reality." A Kryn warrior, one of the few militaristic species in the Council, actually looked impressed. "They sound formidable. Perhaps they would make valuable allies." "No," Kelleth's voice cracked with emotion. "You do not understand. I have studied their culture, their history, their psychology. They do not think like us. When threatened, they do not seek compromise. They eliminate the threat. When told something is impossible, they prove it wrong out of spite. When you push them, they push back harder. He brought up one final image, a quote from human literature, translated into galactic standard. "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." They believe this, Keleth said. Every single one of them. They refuse to accept limits imposed by others. They refuse to submit to external control. If we allow them into the galaxy, if they learn how much weaker most species are compared to them, they will not be content with equality. They will dominate because that is what survivors from a death world do. The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives dismissed Keleth's concerns as paranoia. Others shared his fear. The Thalmarians, who had maintained peace for thousands of years, were deeply troubled by the implications. Voss called for order. When the chamber quieted, he spoke carefully. "What do you propose, Ambassador Keleth?" "A quarantine," Keleth said. "We establish a boundary. We tell the humans that ancient treaties prevent expansion into this region of space. We redirect their explorers. We ensure they never discover the truth about the galaxy, that most species have no real military, that our defenses are designed for peacekeeping, not war, that we have resources and worlds that they could take if they chose to." "You propose we lie to them?" asked a Vryn philosopher. "I propose we survive," Keleth replied. "Better they believe the galaxy is guarded by powerful forces than learn we are defenseless against a species bred for combat." The vote took 3 days. Representatives argued about ethics, about the rights of emerging species, about the dangers of deception. But in the end, fear won. The vote was unanimous. First Contact Team 7 was assembled. 5 ships, all unarmed as was Council tradition. Their mission was simple: deliver the message and establish the quarantine boundary. Captain Lisa Martinez was checking the Horizon's navigation systems when her sensor operator shouted, "Captain, multiple contacts! They just appeared out of nowhere!" Lisa rushed to the main display. 5 alien vessels surrounded her ship, crystalline and beautiful, unlike anything humans had ever built. Her heart raced. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. "All hands to stations," she ordered, keeping her voice calm. "Prepare the first contact protocols, and somebody wake up the diplomats." The communication came in multiple formats simultaneously. Radio, laser, quantum entanglement. The aliens were thorough. When the translation matrix finally decoded the message, Lisa felt her excitement drain away. "Attention, human vessel. This is the Galactic Council. Your species has been identified and catalogued. By ancient treaty and galactic law, this region of space is forbidden to human expansion. You are ordered to return to your home system immediately. You will not venture beyond your star again. This is your only warning. Comply or face consequences." Lisa stared at the message in disbelief. Her crew of 40 scientists and explorers had spent 3 years traveling to this sector. They had detected signs of dozens of civilizations, and now they were being told to go home and never leave again. "Captain," her first officer asked, "how do we respond?" Lisa made her decision. "Open a channel. Let's try to talk to them." The communication link opened. "This is Captain Lisa Martinez of the human exploration vessel Horizon. We come in peace. We have no hostile intent. We wish only to learn about other civilizations and establish friendly relations. Surely we can discuss this." The response was cold and immediate. "Your intentions are irrelevant. Return to your system. This is not negotiable." "But why?" Lisa pleaded. "What have we done wrong? We haven't violated any treaties. We didn't even know you existed until today." "Please, just talk to us. You have been warned. There will be no further communication." The 5 alien ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, their faster-than-light drives leaving no trace. The Horizon was alone again among the stars. Lisa looked at her crew. Some were confused. Some were angry. All of them understood that everything had changed. Humanity had reached for the stars and been told they weren't welcome. Commander Jake Morrison sat in the intelligence briefing room deep beneath the United Earth Government headquarters. Around him, representatives from every major nation and colony watched the playback from the horizon for the 5th time. Each viewing made the message clearer and more disturbing. They didn't even try to negotiate, Jake said, freezing the playback on the alien ships. They appeared, delivered their ultimatum, and left. No discussion, no explanation, just orders. Dr. Amy Chen, the cultural anthropologist who specialized in human conflict resolution, leaned forward. She had been studying the brief exchange for days. The phrasing is critical. They said, "You are ordered," and "this is not negotiable." They're treating us like children or criminals. And look at the timing. They waited until we were far from home, isolated, vulnerable. That was deliberate. "So what are they afraid of?" asked General Paul Richards, his uniform decorated with medals from 3 different wars. He was old enough to remember when Earth was divided into competing nations before the unification. "Us," Amy said simply. "Everything about that message screams fear masked as authority. They don't want us exploring. They don't want us learning about the galaxy, which means there's something out there they don't want us to find." President Helen Gray entered the room, and everyone stood. She waved them back to their seats. "I've been reading the psychological profiles. Tell me plainly, Dr. Chen, how will humanity respond to this?" Amy chose her words carefully. "Humanity has never responded well to ultimatums, Madam President. Throughout our history, when someone has drawn a line and said, 'You cannot cross this,' we've made it our mission to cross it. It's in our nature. We're a species that climbed mountains because they were there. We went to space because it was impossible. Telling us we cannot do something is the surest way to make us do it." "Even if it means war?" the president asked. "Especially if it means war," Jake interjected. "Because now it's not just about exploration. It's about sovereignty. They're claiming the right to restrict our movement, our growth, our future. No human government in history has accepted that peacefully." The president turned to the large display showing known space. "How many unauthorized expeditions have launched since the horizon returned?" 47 that we know of," Jake admitted. "Probably twice that many we haven't detected. The Mars colonies are building their own ships. The belt miners are pooling resources for deep space missions. Even private corporations are sending out probes. You can't stop it, Madam President. The word is out. There are aliens, and they're trying to cage us." President Gray nodded slowly. She had expected this. "Recommendations?" General Richards stood. "We prepare for the worst. If these aliens meant to peacefully coexist, they would have talked to us. Instead, they threatened us. In my experience, people who start with threats usually follow through." "Begin defensive preparations," the president ordered. "But quietly. I want to know our options if this turns hostile. At the same time, prepare a diplomatic mission. We try to talk to them one more time before this escalates." 3 weeks later, Captain Ben Foster guided his mining vessel, the Lucky Strike, toward a mineral-rich asteroid field 40 light-years from Earth. His crew of 12 were experienced belters, men and women who had spent their lives in space. They weren't politicians or soldiers. They were workers looking to make a living. "Contacts!" his sensor operator called out. "Multiple ships. Same signature as the ones that stopped the horizon." Ben felt his stomach tighten. "Try to hail them. Let them know we're just here for mining. We're not hurting anyone." But there was no response, no warning, no communication at all. The automated defense platforms appeared from nowhere, their weapons already charging. Ben barely had time to register what was happening before the first shot hit. The Lucky Strike's hull breached in 3 places. Atmosphere vented into space. The engine room exploded, killing 4 crew members instantly. Emergency systems failed as the power grid collapsed. Ben fought with the controls, trying to get his people to the escape pods. But the second wave of fire tore through the ship's midsection, cutting it in half. In his last moments, Ben managed to activate the emergency beacon and record a final message. "This is Captain Ben Foster of the Lucky Strike. They fired without warning. No communication. No chance to surrender. They just killed us. Tell Earth. Tell everyone. The transmission cut off as the ship's reactor went critical. 47 men and women died in the cold vacuum of space, guilty only of being human and refusing to be caged. The message reached Earth 12 hours later. Jake Morrison was the first to see it in the Intelligence Center. He watched the brief recording 3 times, his hands shaking with rage. Then he called the president. "They killed them," he said without preamble. "No warning, no communication. They murdered 47 civilians for crossing an imaginary line." The president's face on the screen went pale. "You're certain?" "The beacon data is clear. The Lucky Strike was fired upon without provocation. They tried to communicate. The aliens ignored them and opened fire. Madam President, this is an act of war." What followed was the fastest mobilization in human history. President Gray addressed the world from New Geneva. Her words broadcast to every colony, every ship, every human outpost in the solar system. "My fellow humans," she began, her voice steady, but filled with barely controlled anger. 12 hours ago, the mining vessel Lucky Strike was destroyed by alien forces. 47 of our people are dead. They were murdered without warning, without communication, without mercy. Their only crime was existing beyond an arbitrary boundary that we never agreed to. She paused, letting the words sink in. 3 weeks ago, we learned we are not alone in the universe. We hoped for friendship, for cooperation, for a place among the galactic community. Instead, we found beings who view us with fear and contempt, who believe they have the right to dictate where we can go, what we can do, whether we live or die. The president's expression hardened. "I say this to those aliens, wherever they are. You drew a line. We questioned it. You responded with murder. You have made a grave mistake. Humanity does not kneel to threats. We do not accept chains, and we do not forgive unprovoked slaughter. You wanted to keep us contained. You have instead awakened something you should have feared." She turned to face the camera directly. "To every human listening, we are at war. Not because we chose it, but because it was forced upon us. Begin full mobilization. Every shipyard, every factory, every resource we have will be devoted to our survival. We will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten a species that has spent 10,000 years learning to fight." The declaration was met with overwhelming support. Humanity had always been divided by nations, cultures, beliefs. But now they had a common enemy, someone who had killed their people and threatened their future. The shipyards above Earth, Mars, and the major asteroids shifted to military production. Vessels that had been disguised as cargo haulers and science ships revealed their true purpose. Weapons testing that had been conducted in secret for decades was now accelerated. Because humanity had always known, deep in their bones, that the universe might be hostile. They had prepared for this day long before making first contact. Admiral Susan Blake was pulled out of retirement and given command of the First Fleet. She stood on the bridge of the warship Defiance, watching the construction reports flood in. 300 vessels, all armed with weapons designed to fight an unknown enemy. "They think we're unprepared," she said to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Chris Palmer. "They think we've only been in space for a few decades." "We have, Admiral," Chris pointed out. Susan smiled grimly. "No, we've been building these ships for 50 years. Ever since we developed the faster-than-light drive, we've been preparing for this exact scenario. We just called it peaceful exploration to avoid panic." She pulled up the fleet composition: carriers filled with fighter craft, destroyers equipped with kinetic weapons that could punch through planets, cruisers carrying antimatter torpedoes, and support vessels loaded with electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt enemy communications. "Send the message on all known alien frequencies," Susan ordered. "Let them know we're coming." The broadcast went out in every language Earth's computers could generate. "This is Admiral Susan Blambassador Kelleth, stood in the Council's emergency war room, watching the tactical display with growing horror. The human fleet had appeared on their sensors 3 hours ago, and everything he had warned about was coming true." "How many ships?" Council Director Voss asked, his voice tight with stress. 300 confirmed," replied Intelligence Director Morvex, a six-limbed being whose species had never known war. "But there could be more behind them. Our sensors are having difficulty tracking their formations. They're using some kind of stealth technology." "Impossible," Kelleth said. "They've only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. They can't have developed military-grade stealth systems." Morvex pulled up intercepted data from human communication networks. "They've had these ships for decades. The construction facilities on Mars, the orbital platforms around Jupiter, the asteroid bases we thought were mining operations, all of them were building warships while telling the galaxy they were peaceful explorers." The display showed schematics that Council intelligence had stolen from human databases, vessels 3 times larger than standard Council ships, armor plating designed to withstand kinetic impacts, redundant systems that would keep fighting even after catastrophic damage, and weapons unlike anything the galaxy had seen in thousands of years. "What are those?" Voss pointed at one of the weapon systems. "Railguns," Morvex said quietly. "Magnetic accelerators that launch solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Each projectile carries kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. They don't need explosives. The impact alone is devastating." Kelleth felt sick. "And those?" "Antimatter torpedoes. The humans have mastered antimatter containment. Each torpedo contains enough antimatter to vaporize a small moon. They have hundreds of them." The Council chamber fell silent. These weren't the weapons of a peaceful species exploring the cosmos. These were weapons designed for one purpose: overwhelming destruction. "How do we stop them?" Voss asked. "I don't know if we can," Morvex admitted. "Our defensive platforms are designed to disable ships peacefully, not destroy them. Our weapons are meant for law enforcement, not war. The humans have spent their entire history fighting each other. They know how to kill efficiently." The first engagement came sooner than expected. The Council's border outpost in the Kepler sector detected the human vanguard 20 ships led by Captain Ryan Cole. The outpost commander, a peaceful Thalmarian named Sorath, activated the defensive platforms and sent a desperate plea for the humans to stop. "Human vessels, this is Kepler outpost. Please cease your advance. We have families here, civilians. We don't want to fight you." Captain Ryan's response was cold and professional. "Kepler outpost, you have 5 minutes to evacuate all personnel. After that, we will engage military targets. We have no desire to harm civilians, but we will complete our mission." Sorath looked at his second in command. "Can we evacuate in 5 minutes? We have 600 people on this station. It's impossible." "Then we surrender," Sorath said. "Shut down the weapons platforms. Open the hangar bays. Let them see we're not resisting." The weapons platforms powered down. The outpost's shields dropped. Sorath sent the acknowledgement. "We surrender. Please, we're shutting down all military systems." Captain Ryan's response came immediately. "Confirmed. All personnel proceed to the evacuation zones. You have 20 minutes. We'll provide escort ships to ensure your safety." True to his word, human fighters appeared to guide the evacuation ships away from the outpost. Once all civilians were clear, the human destroyers opened fire on the unmanned weapons platforms. The railgun rounds hit with terrible precision. Each platform simply ceased to exist, torn apart by impacts that released more energy than most species had ever weaponized. In 11 minutes, 50 defensive platforms were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated debris. Target neutralized, Captain Ryan reported to Admiral Blake. 0 civilian casualties, all military assets destroyed. Continuing to next objective. The news reached the Council within hours. The humans had destroyed an entire defensive network in minutes, but they had also spared every civilian, even taking time to ensure their safe evacuation. "They're not monsters," a Delphian representative said in the emergency session. "Monsters don't evacuate their enemies." "They're worse than monsters," Kelleth replied. "They're disciplined. They know exactly what they're doing. They're destroying our military capability while maintaining moral high ground. This isn't rage, it's calculated warfare." The human fleet continued its advance, hitting 6 more outposts over the next week. Each time, the pattern was the same. Offer evacuation time, destroy all military assets, move to the next target. The humans were systematically dismantling the Council's entire defensive network. Admiral Susan Blake stood on the bridge of the Defiance, reviewing the battle reports. Her fleet had encountered minimal resistance. The Council's weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. They fired electromagnetic pulses that should have shut down ship systems. But human vessels were hardened against their own nuclear weapons, and EMPs were useless. The Council's tractor beams tried to hold ships in place, but human engines, designed to launch heavy payloads from high-gravity worlds, simply overpowered them with raw thrust. "They're not equipped for real war," Susan said to her tactical officer. "They've been at peace so long they forgot what conflict looks like." "Should we slow down?" Chris Palmer asked. "Give them time to realize they can't win?" "No," Susan said firmly. "The moment we slow down, they'll interpret it as weakness. We push hard until they beg for peace." That's the only language that matters now. But the Admiral understood the terrible truth of their situation. They were winning because the Council had never needed to learn war. The galaxy had been peaceful for so long that military science had stagnated. The humans, who had never known lasting peace, had continued refining their ability to destroy. Dr. Amy Chen was aboard the Defiance as the civilian representative. She watched the tactical displays and felt a deep sadness. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "Admiral," she said during a quiet moment, "we're terrifying them. Every battle we win makes us look more dangerous." "Good," Susan replied. "Fear will bring them to the negotiating table faster than kindness." "But what comes after? When the war ends, we'll still need to live with these species." "How do we build trust after this?" Susan's expression softened slightly. "That's your job, Doctor. I win the war. You win the peace. But first, they need to understand they can't bully us." The Council assembled again, this time with representatives from all major species. The chamber was filled with fear and confusion. They had gone from being the dominant civilization to being hunted in the span of weeks. Ambassador Kelleth stood before them, no longer proud but desperate. "I told you. I warned all of you. The humans are a Deathworld species. They don't negotiate from weakness. They don't accept restrictions. And now they're showing us what happens when you threaten them." "What do we do?" a young representative asked. "Our weapons don't work. Our defenses are useless. How do we fight them?" "We don't," Voss said heavily. The Council director looked older than his years. "We never should have fired on their mining ship. We never should have threatened them. Kelleth was right to fear them, but wrong about how to handle them." "So we surrender?" Kelleth asked. "We talk," Voss said. "Before they reach the homeworlds. Before this becomes a slaughter. We contact them and we beg them to stop." The message went out on all human frequencies. "This is Council Director Voss to the human fleet. We request immediate ceasefire and negotiations. We acknowledge our mistakes. Please, no more destruction. Let us talk." Admiral Blake received the message and called a halt to fleet operations. The human ships held position at the edge of Council Corps territory, their weapons ready but silent. "They're requesting negotiations," Chris reported. Took them long enough, Susan said. Get Dr. Chen up here and send a response. Tell them we'll talk, but on our terms. Amy arrived quickly, already reviewing the council's message. They're afraid. They've realized they can't win a military conflict. This is our chance to end this before it goes too far. What are our demands? Susan asked. Amy had been preparing for this moment since the war began. Full diplomatic recognition. No restrictions on human exploration or settlement. Reparations for the Lucky Strike crew and their families. And representation on the council. We're not asking to join their club. We're demanding a seat at the table. Susan smiled. I like it. Anything else? One more thing, Amy said. We need to show them we're not interested in conquest. We offer medical aid, humanitarian assistance, anything they need to rebuild what we destroyed. We prove we can be partners, not just conquerors. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Voss looked at the assembled representatives and saw fear in every face. Some species, like the gentle Delphians, were openly weeping. Others, like the warrior Kryn, showed grudging respect. But all of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. The human fleet holds position at the edge of our core territories, Voss announced. They have destroyed 14 outposts, disabled our entire patrol network in 6 sectors, and demonstrated weapons we have no defense against. And they did it all in less than 3 weeks. Ambassador Kelleth stood, his 4 arms hanging limp at his sides. I warned you. I told you what they were. But you didn't want to believe that such a species could exist. You told us they were dangerous, snapped Ambassador Tyrix of the Delphians, his normally calm voice shaking with emotion. You didn't tell us they were already preparing for interstellar war. You didn't tell us they had weapons that could tear apart our stations in minutes. You made us think we had time to contain them. Because I didn't know, Kelleth shouted back. I saw their history, their violence, their persistence, but they hid their true military capability from everyone. They pretended to be peaceful explorers while building a war fleet that dwarfs anything the galaxy has seen in thousands of years. Voss raised a hand for silence. The blame doesn't matter now. What matters is how we respond. The humans have sent their terms for peace. I've shared them with all of you. We need to vote. These demands are insulting, said a representative from the Thalmarian Confederacy. Full diplomatic recognition, seats on the council. They should be grateful we're willing to negotiate at all after their aggression. Their aggression? A Kryn warrior named Vex stood up, his scaled form imposing even among the diverse species present. We fired first. We killed their civilians without warning. They responded with restraint by warrior standards. They evacuated our people before destroying our military assets. A true warrior culture would have shown no such mercy. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to accept the human terms immediately. Others argued for continued resistance, believing the humans wouldn't really attack civilian populations. A few suggested evacuating the core worlds and letting the humans have empty territory. Finally, Voss called for silence. Before we vote, there's someone who wants to address us. Dr. Amy Chen, the human cultural representative, has requested permission to speak. I think we should hear what she has to say. The chamber erupted in protests, but Voss overrode them. She's aboard their flagship. She has insights into human thinking that we desperately need. I'm allowing her to address us remotely. Amy's image appeared on the central display. Behind her, the bridge of the Defiance was visible, showing human crew members working efficiently and calmly. No panic, no chaos, just professional focus. Honorable members of the council, Amy began, I want to explain something about humans that I don't think you understand. We didn't want this war. We came to your galaxy hoping for friendship, for exchange of knowledge, for partnership. That was genuine. Then why did you attack us? Tyrix demanded. Because you made 3 critical mistakes, Amy said calmly. First, you assumed weakness was normal. You built your civilization on gentle worlds where survival was easy. You created a society where cooperation came naturally because you never had to fight for existence. Earth is not like that. We evolved alongside predators. We survived ice ages, volcanic winters, asteroid impacts, and diseases that killed millions. We didn't have the luxury of peace. We learned to fight or we died. She paused, letting that sink in. Your second mistake was in how you approached us. You came with threats instead of friendship. You told us we couldn't explore beyond our star. You drew a line and said we couldn't cross it. Then you killed our people when they did. You triggered every survival instinct humanity has developed over millions of years. We were trying to protect the galaxy from you, Keleth shouted. And that's your third mistake, Amy said, looking directly at him. You tried to cage us without understanding that humans don't respond to cages. Throughout our history, when someone has tried to restrict our freedom, we've fought back. Every empire that tried to dominate us eventually fell. Every tyrant who tried to control us was overthrown. You should have invited us to join you as equals. Instead, you made us your enemies. Voss leaned forward. So what now, Dr. Chen? Do you destroy us? Prove that Keleth was right to fear you? Amy's expression softened. That depends entirely on you. Accept our terms. Treat us as equals. Give us a voice in galactic affairs, and we'll prove we can be peaceful. We'll share our technology, our culture, our friendship. Keep threatening us, and we'll show you what 10 billion Deathworlders with a unified purpose can really do. That sounds like another threat, a representative muttered. It's a promise, Amy corrected. We're offering you a choice, peace with honor or war to the end. We prefer peace, but we'll accept either outcome. Can you say the same? The connection ended, leaving the council in stunned silence. Amy had spoken with such confidence, such certainty, that it was clear the humans truly didn't fear the consequences of continued war. She's right, Vex said quietly. They're offering us better terms than we deserve. If the Kryn had suffered what the humans suffered, we would have burned your worlds and taken what we wanted. The humans are showing restraint. We should accept it while we can. The vote was called. It wasn't unanimous this time. Some species refused to accept the human terms, believing it would set a dangerous precedent. But the majority understood they had no choice. The council accepted the human demands. The Treaty of New Horizon was drafted over the following weeks. Ambassadors from both sides worked tirelessly to create a framework for coexistence. The negotiations were tense, with the weight of recent violence hanging over every discussion. Captain Lisa Martinez, the woman whose first contact had started everything, was chosen as Earth's primary ambassador. She sat across from Voss in a small conference room aboard a neutral station, neither human nor council territory. I should have approached your ship differently, Voss admitted. When Keleth presented his findings, I let fear guide my decision. I authorized the quarantine because I was afraid of change, afraid of a species we didn't understand. Lisa nodded slowly. And I should have been more cautious. We pushed beyond your boundary because we assumed you had no good reason for it. We didn't consider that you might genuinely believe you were protecting something. Both of us made mistakes. But your people died because of my mistakes, Voss said. The Lucky Strike crew. They were innocent and we killed them. Yes, Lisa said simply. And that's something humanity won't forget. But we can choose what we do with that memory. We can use it to fuel hatred, or we can use it to build something better, to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Ambassador Keleth joined them, looking diminished and tired. I was wrong about humans, he said quietly. I thought you were monsters. I thought you would conquer the galaxy if given the chance. But you didn't. You fought until we agreed to talk, then you stopped. You offered to rebuild what you destroyed. You proved me wrong." "You weren't entirely wrong," Lisa admitted. "Humans are dangerous. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day, and we learned to fight back. That's in our nature. But so is cooperation. We survived because we worked together. We built civilizations because we learned to trust each other." "You just never gave us the chance to show you that side." The treaty was signed in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. Human ships would have free movement through council space. Humanity would receive full voting representation on the council. Reparations would be paid to the families of the Lucky Strike crew. And both sides agreed to joint scientific and cultural exchanges. But the most important clause was the one Amy Chen had insisted on: mutual defense. If either humanity or the council faced an external threat, they would stand together. "Because," Amy explained during the signing ceremony, "we learned something from this war. We're stronger together than apart. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. There are threats out there we haven't even discovered yet. When they come, we'll need each other." The first test of this new alliance came sooner than anyone expected. 6 months after the treaty, the Kryn Confederation detected an anomaly in their territory. An ancient artificial intelligence, left behind by a long-extinct civilization, had activated. It was consuming resources, building more of itself, expanding exponentially. The Kryn had fought it for months and were losing. They called the council for help. The debate lasted for weeks as species argued about resources and risks. Then humanity acted. Admiral Ryan Cole, the captain who had destroyed the first council outpost, volunteered to lead a joint task force. His fleet integrated with Kryn warriors and council support vessels, creating the first truly mixed galactic military force. "We've never worked together before," a Kryn commander named Crix said to Ryan as they reviewed the battle plans. "My warriors respect strength. You've proven your strength, but can we trust you?" Ryan looked at the strategic map showing the AI's expansion. "Your civilization is dying, and you're asking if you can trust us? Commander, we're here. That's your answer. Judge us by our actions, not our words." The campaign against the rogue AI lasted 3 weeks. Human tactical expertise combined with Kryn warrior spirit and council technological support created a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They adapted to the AI's strategies, learned its patterns, and struck with precision. When the final AI core was destroyed, the victory celebration brought together species that had been enemies months ago. Human soldiers shared drinks with Kryn warriors. Council engineers worked alongside human technicians to repair damaged stations. The barriers that had divided them were crumbling. Ambassador Kelleth watched the celebrations from a distance. Lisa found him standing alone, staring at the stars through a viewing port. "Having regrets?" she asked. "Many," Kelleth admitted. "I started this. My fear, my warning, my push for the quarantine. All of this 5 years had passed since the Treaty of New Horizon was signed. The galaxy looked different now, changed in ways both subtle and profound. Captain Lisa Martinez stood in the human embassy on the Council homeworld, watching a stream of visitors move through the Cultural Exchange Center. Alien children pressed their faces against displays showing Earth's oceans and mountains. Their parents read about human history, fascinated and horrified in equal measure by the violence and beauty of humanity's past. "Strange, isn't it?" Ambassador Kelleth approached her, moving more slowly than he used to. The stress of recent years had aged him. 5 years ago, I stood before the council and warned them you would destroy us. Now I watch alien children learn human songs." Lisa smiled. "My daughter is learning Vryn poetry in school. She came home last week reciting one of your classical pieces. She has no idea you're the ambassador who tried to quarantine her entire species." "Should I apologize again?" Kelleth asked. "No," Lisa said firmly. "We've both apologized enough. What matters is what we build now. Across the galaxy, human ships traveled freely through Council space, but they weren't alone anymore. Mixed crews had become common. Human engineers worked alongside Thalmarian scientists, Kryn warriors trained with human marines. The boundaries that had once seemed insurmountable were fading. Dr. Amy Chen sat in her office at the University of New Earth, reviewing the latest data for her research. Her paper, Deathworld Evolution and Galactic Integration, had become required reading for every species trying to understand their human neighbors. A young Delphian student knocked on her door. His name was Tirek, and he was writing his thesis on human conflict resolution. "Professor Chen, I have a question about your paper. You wrote that humans are not uniquely violent, just uniquely persistent. But I've studied your history, the wars, the genocides, the destruction. How can you say you're not more violent than other species?" Amy considered the question carefully. "Come in, Tirek. Let me show you something." She pulled up comparative data on her display, showing conflict statistics from dozens of species. "Look at this. The Kryn had wars that lasted centuries. The Thalmarian Confederacy was founded after a civil war that killed billions. Even your own people, the Delphians, have records of territorial conflicts in your ancient past." "But we evolved past that," Tirek protested. "We became peaceful." "You became peaceful because your world allowed it," Amy explained. "Your oceans were rich with food. Your predators were manageable. You had time to develop philosophy and cooperation. Humans never had that luxury. Earth kept trying to kill us, so we learned to survive through any means necessary." That included violence, yes, but it also included cooperation on a scale most species never needed. She pulled up images of human cities, vast metropolises housing millions. We learned to live in close proximity, to share limited resources, to work together despite our differences. Not because we're saints, but because we had to. Alone we die. Together we survive. That's the real human advantage. Tirek looked at the images thoughtfully. "So the violence is just part of the survival instinct?" "Exactly. And now that we're not fighting for survival every day, we can choose peace. We don't need to be violent anymore. But we remember how, and that makes us good allies when violence is necessary." General Paul Richards walked through the Joint Military Training Facility on Mars, watching human soldiers practice combat maneuvers alongside Kryn warriors and Council peacekeepers. The integration had been challenging, but it was working. Commander Crix, the Kryn who had fought alongside Ryan Cole against the rogue AI, approached him. "Your troops are improving. Last month, my warriors could defeat them easily. Now the matches are even." "Your warriors are teaching them well," Paul acknowledged. "But they're also learning from you. Human tactics combined with Kryn combat philosophy creates something new." "Something stronger," Crix agreed. "I opposed the treaty at first. I thought humans would dominate the galaxy through force. Instead, you're teaching us how to defend it properly. The Council was weak because they had forgotten how to fight. You reminded them." Paul shook his head. "We didn't remind them. We scared them. There's a difference. But maybe that fear was necessary. Sometimes peace requires the ability to wage war." The reality was that human military doctrine was spreading throughout the galaxy. Not through conquest, but through voluntary adoption. Council species looked at human strategies and realized they had valuable lessons to learn. Defensive positions were reinforced. Weapon systems were upgraded. Training programs were revised. The galaxy wasn't becoming more violent, it was becoming more prepared. President Helen Gray stood in the United Earth Government Hall, addressing representatives from 300 worlds. It was the annual Galactic Assembly, and this year, Earth was hosting. "5 years ago," she began, "we came to this galaxy hoping for friendship and found only fear. We responded with force because that was the only language spoken to us. But today, we stand together. Human, Vryn, Thalmarian, Kryn, Delphian, and hundreds of others. We are no longer separate species protecting our borders. We are allies working toward a common future. The assembly applauded, though some species still showed hesitation. Trust took time to build, especially after a war. I won't pretend we're perfect, Helen continued. Humans still struggle with our violent past. Some of our people still view aliens with suspicion, and I know many of you still fear us. That's natural. Fear doesn't disappear overnight. But we're proving, day by day, that we can be trusted, that we value peace as much as we value strength. After the speech, she met privately with Voss. The council director had become a friend over the years, though their relationship had started with threats and war. Your speech was good, Voss said, but I wonder if you truly understand what you've done to the galaxy. What do you mean? You've changed everything, Voss explained. For 12,000 years, the Council maintained peace through careful diplomacy and mutual cooperation. We avoided conflict because conflict was unthinkable. Then you arrived, and suddenly conflict became very real. Species that had never considered military buildup are now asking for human advisors. The balance we maintained for millennia is shifting. Helen nodded slowly. Are you saying we've made things worse? No, Voss said. I'm saying you've made things different. Whether that's better or worse depends on what happens next. The galaxy was stable but stagnant. Now it's dynamic but uncertain. We need to make sure that uncertainty doesn't become chaos. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert. A Council exploration ship had detected something in deep space, an approaching fleet from outside known galactic boundaries. Large, heavily armed, and heading toward inhabited space. The threat the treaty had been designed to face had finally arrived. Admiral Susan Blake came out of retirement for the second time. She stood on the bridge of a new flagship, the Unity, built jointly by human and Council engineers. Around her, a mixed fleet prepared for potential combat. Human warships, Kryn battle carriers, Council defense platforms, and Thalmarian science vessels. Contact the approaching fleet, she ordered. Standard first contact protocols. Let's hope they're friendly. The response came back quickly. It wasn't friendly. The unknown fleet claimed the territory they were entering belonged to their empire. They had no interest in negotiation. They would take what they wanted by force. Well, Susan said dryly, at least we know where we stand. All ships, prepare for defensive operations. Remember the protocols. Protect civilians first, minimize casualties where possible, but defend our territory. The battle that followed was fierce. The invading fleet was powerful, equipped with weapons comparable to humanity's, but they faced something they hadn't expected, a unified galactic defense. Human tactics coordinated the fleet movements. Kryn warriors led boarding actions against enemy ships. Council scientists identified weaknesses in the enemy shields. Thalmarian diplomats even managed to negotiate the surrender of several enemy vessels once they realized continued fighting was hopeless. The invasion was repelled within 2 weeks. The survivors were offered a choice: return home with a warning or join the Council as equals. Most chose to leave. A few stayed, curious about a civilization that offered peace even to invaders. Captain Ryan Cole watched the enemy fleet retreat and felt a strange sense of satisfaction. We didn't start that fight, but we finished it. Together. His Kryn second officer, a warrior named Vesh, nodded agreement. 5 years ago, we would have faced that threat alone and lost. Today, we faced it together and won. Perhaps the humans were right. We are stronger united. In the aftermath of the battle, the galaxy took a collective breath and assessed what had happened. The first real external threat in thousands of years had been defeated through cooperation. Species that had been enemies 5 years ago had fought side by side and survived. Ambassador Kelleth stood at the memorial built for the Lucky Strike crew on Earth. 47 names carved in stone, representing the humans who died in the incident that started the war. He had come here every year since the treaty, always alone, always carrying the weight of his mistakes. This year, Lisa Martinez joined him. "I started this," Kelleth said quietly. "If I had approached you differently, if I had recommended friendship instead of quarantine, none of those people would have died." "Maybe," Lisa acknowledged. "Or maybe we would have found some other reason to misunderstand each other. Fear is powerful. It makes us do stupid things, but so is hope. And we chose hope. Eventually." "Do you think they would forgive me?" Kelleth asked, gesturing to the names. "I think," Lisa said carefully, "that they would want you to learn from what happened, to make sure it never happens again. That's what memorial really means. Not just remembering the dead, but learning from why they died." Behind them, human children played in the park surrounding the memorial. Some were showing alien visitors around, proud to share their world. The war was becoming history, a lesson to learn from rather than a wound to nurse. Dr. Amy Chen published her final paper on human galactic integration. In it, she wrote something that would be quoted for generations. "Humanity came to the stars seeking friends and found fear. We responded with fury because that was all we knew. But through that fury, we found something better: understanding. We learned that strength without compassion is tyranny, and the galaxy learned that peace without the ability to defend it is just waiting to be conquered. Together, we're building something new, something stronger, something worth fighting for." Admiral Susan Blake retired for good after the invasion was repelled. She spent her final years teaching at the Joint Military Academy, training the next generation of defenders. Her students were human: Kryn, Thalmarian, and dozens of other species. They learned not just human tactics, but human philosophy. Win the war, but always remember why you're fighting. President Helen Gray stepped down after 2 terms, proud of what humanity had accomplished. At her farewell address, she said something that captured the transformation. "We came to the galaxy as strangers. They tried to warn us away. We responded by showing them what we were. But what they didn't expect, what even we didn't expect, was that we could change, that we could be warriors when necessary and peacemakers when possible. That's the real human achievement. Not the wars we won, but the peace we chose." The galaxy settled into a new normal. Human explorers ventured into unknown regions, but now they traveled with alien partners. Human weapons protected council borders, but those weapons were wielded with restraint. Human culture spread to 1,000 worlds, but it was enriched by alien influences in return. The species that had tried to contain the Deathworlders learned to embrace them instead. And in doing so, they discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to fight. It was their ability to choose not to, even when they could win. 50 years after first contact, a young human named Alex graduated from the Galactic Academy. His thesis was on the early years of human integration, the war and the peace that followed. "What did you learn?" his advisor, an elderly Vryn scholar, asked. "That fear is easy and trust is hard," Alex replied. "But trust is always worth it. My grandparents' generation fought a war because 2 sides were afraid of each other. My generation gets to live in peace because they learned to work together despite that fear. That's the legacy they left us." The advisor smiled. "And what will your generation's legacy be?" Alex looked out at the stars, at the ships moving between worlds, at the civilization that humanity had become part of. "I think we're going to push further, explore deeper, find new species and new challenges. But we won't make the same mistakes. We'll lead with friendship, not fear. And if someone threatens us or our allies, we'll stand together. just like our ancestors taught us. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was dangerous, yes. They came from a world that had tried to kill them for millions of years. They carried violence in their DNA and persistence in their souls. But they also carried hope. And given the choice between conquest and cooperation, between dominance and friendship, they had chosen the harder path. They had chosen to be guardians instead of conquerors. And the galaxy was better for it, Enid, because I was afraid of you. You were trying to protect your people, Lisa said. I understand that. Fear makes us do things we regret, but we survived it, both of us. That has to count for something. Keleth turned to face her. I spent my entire life studying dangerous species, trying to protect the galaxy from threats. I never considered that the biggest threat was refusing to make friends with strong allies. You could have destroyed us. Instead, you saved the Kryn. Why? Lisa smiled. Because that's what friends do. And despite everything, despite the war and the deaths and the fear, I still believe we can be friends. Not today, maybe not even next year, but eventually, if we both keep trying. The galaxy was learning a new truth. Humanity was dangerous, yes. They came from a death world and carried violence in their nature, but they also carried compassion, loyalty, and an unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. The species that had tried to warn the galaxy about humanity were now learning to work with them. And in doing so, they were becoming stronger than they had ever been alone. The Admiral nodded. Draft the terms. I'll send them to the Council. But make sure they understand. This is not negotiable. They started this war. We're ending it on our terms. The message went back to the Council, and Voss read it with mixed feelings. The human demands were harsh but not impossible. They weren't asking for territory or tribute. They were asking for respect. Can we accept this? A representative asked. Do we have a choice? Voss replied. They could continue their advance. They could destroy our homeworlds. Instead, they're offering peace. I say we take it before they change their minds. But not everyone agreed. Some species, particularly those who had never faced real danger, wanted to continue resisting. They believed the humans were bluffing, that no species could really be as dangerous as they appeared. Ambassador Keleth knew better. He had studied human history, human psychology, human warfare. He knew that if the Council rejected this offer, the humans would not make another one. They would finish what they started, and the galaxy would learn what a Death World species could really do when pushed beyond mercy. Vote yes, Keleth urged the Council. Accept their terms, because if we don't, there won't be a Council left to debate it. Ake of the Human Defense Fleet. We are coming to Council space. We will destroy every military installation in our path. Surrender your forces and agree to negotiations, or we will show you what a Death World species can do when you threaten their survival. You have 24 hours to respond. There was no response. They don't think we'll really do it, Chris said. Then they're about to learn a very hard lesson, Susan replied. All ships prepare for jump, target, Council border outposts, rules of engagement, destroy all military targets, avoid civilian casualties where possible, but mission success is priority 1. The First Fleet jumped into faster than light travel, leaving Earth's solar system behind. They were heading into unknown territory, against an enemy they knew nothing about, with weapons they had never tested in real combat. But they were human. And humans had never needed to understand their enemy to know how to fight them. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Now they would show the galaxy what that meant. Set course for Earth, Lisa ordered quietly. And prepare the full report. Every detail, every sensor reading, everything they said and how they said it. Her first officer understood. You think they're afraid of us? I think, Lisa said slowly, that we just met someone who thinks they can tell humanity where we can and cannot go. And I think they have no idea how badly that's going to go for them. The horizon turned toward home, carrying news that would change everything. The galaxy had tried to warn humanity away. They had just made their first and worst mistake,